right. Well, welcome back, everyone, to Talk 122 with your superintendent, Dr. Terrell Yarbrough. I'm here with a special guest on a very special topic, and it's about student voice and really trying to get the audience to understand the importance of student voice, particularly as a high school student, right? And going through that process. And so we're going to first start with some easy questions, right? And so if you can tell the audience, just who you are, your name, what grade you're in, and then we'll go from there.
All right, my name is Jeremy Martinez, and I'm a senior this year at Harlem.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that. And I noticed that you're wearing a Harlem band shirt. And can you tell the audience what instruments you play?
I play the alto saxophone.
Okay. How long have you been playing that?
Since the middle of 5th grade, so
Okay.
coming on to like 7 years-ish.
Gotcha. Now, have you always attended Harlem schools?
Yes.
Awesome. Love it. All right. So with student voice, let's jump right into it. In your words, right? How important is student voice?
I think it's probably one of the most important things about
Okay.
making a good school. Just because we know like how everybody is, like we know each other so well at Harlem, like especially like the student body,
Mhm.
and like some of the like teachers administrators might not know as much, so having the students having a big voice and making it sure that like we have like a good experience at high school too.
Okay.
Like we only have 4 years of it,
Mhm.
and not even just in high school too, throughout all the grades.
Okay.
Just making sure we have the most amount of fun that we can while maintaining good grades and everything.
Perfect. I like that. And so when you think of the opportunities that you've had, throughout your time in Harlem and sharing what you felt was important and, whether it was in a class, whether it was, in the marching band, things of that nature, what can you remember about those environments, with those particular teachers or, band directors that really made you feel comfortable enough to speak your truth and talk up?
Well, especially in like extracurriculars too and in classes, it kind of feels not as so much as like a class or an extracurricular. It feels more like a family kind of. So like for example in like band, we all work together to make one outcome,
Okay.
which is us playing music. So we all kind of feel like family members, kind of like there would be like fun times, sad times, like there's arguments in between, but having everybody work together, and it's just such an uplifting like all the memories I have, they're just so like ones that'll stick with me forever, and they're always so like memorable and so like joyful.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you for that. And so if you were, giving advice to a younger student, say at the elementary level, and talking to them about, your journey, in Harlem in classes, and I'm sure you wasn't always the student who would give their opinion, on everything, right? Like because I was the student who was nervous, always in the back of the room, never really wanted to talk a whole lot. What advice would you give young students today as far as, using their voices?
Definitely definitely use it to like your advantage. Like if you have something you want to talk about, whether if it's like something you want to like bring to the school or like a problem that's going on, any teacher or administrator would be more than willing to help. And especially going, like if you go to somebody and they don't know,
Okay.
there always is going to be somebody they know who will know.
Mhm.
So making sure we use like that, and then use it, like don't be scared.
Okay.
Like it took me until like my freshman sophomore year, like joining clubs and everything, to finally get a voice and be to where I am now, and like being so involved in the school. So definitely don't be scared. Like it does seem scary at first, but it's gonna pay off at the end to something that is gonna be worthwhile.
Okay. All right. No, that's awesome. And so when you think of, using your voice and creating change and things of that nature, if there was one thing right now in your current school environment that if you could change it, right, what would that be?
Um,
And I often hear, and I read this in an article too recently. When we talk about student voice, right, in school, um, normally though, we're as administrators, as teachers, even this whole system, right? You're being told what to do, right? You're being told what time to come to school, almost what your lunch, menu options are, right? Even sometimes what classes, you have to take. And so in saying that, what would you like to change about the system if you could, right?
Maybe like because I was listening to what you were talking about from that article.
Okay.
Maybe something to do with like the lunches,
Mm-hmm.
like because being like a student, like a senior advisor,
Okay.
because I'm currently the senior vice president.
Okay.
I was talking.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
a big job. Okay.
I was talking with like the president, and like everybody who is a part of that on coming up with a way for possibly having an off-campus lunch.
Okay.
And of course, that does sound like a little
Mm-hmm.
because of people not wanting to come back to school. But if there's certain like requirements and certain like you have to pass like these certain requirements in order to have it, and not having it every day, like maybe having it like once a week
Okay.
or like once a month, like having like that day, and like putting it to like where people like who have like their license and who drive, and like having like restrictions on that,
Okay.
or even I was thinking like a late start day, maybe something with that, because I know with like coming to school early and like having a routine schedule, it messes with like a lot of people's mental health issues, and like being like, oh, I have to go to school again, like having to wake up at the same time. So having that little bit of change can definitely help with people.
Yeah, no, and I like you that you said that, and you went into the mental health piece, and obviously, with COVID, a lot of things changed, right? A lot of the ways that we did school, right? We went from everything in front of the computer to hybrid to now back full time. If you would think of just that when using your voice, what would you like say to your superintendent, right? About having like a hybrid type model of school. Do you ever hear students or even yourself thinking about, hey, what if we did, have a hybrid type, model as opposed to the full time, way of doing school? What do you think about that?
I actually have thought about that because that's been on my mind with like that, like block scheduling, like
Okay.
those like two different like methods of how we did school. And I personally did enjoy the hybrid method because especially when it was block too, because it gave me the chance to when I was at home online to be able to do things on my own pace and figure out things. And then when I would go into school and go see my teachers, then I could ask questions about like, hey, I don't know like what this means. Can you help explain it more?
Okay.
And have that time in class work one-on-one with the teacher, but then also have the ability to work at your own pace because everybody works at their own different pace.
Okay.
Not everybody is right on time with all the deadlines. So having that like time where you can work at your own pace on like your English work or like your math problems that you have, like having that like difference in like the days is just something that I personally enjoyed. And I think a lot of people would enjoy it too. Like giving the chance of like being at home too and then being at school.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's have a little fun, with you now, so we get away from the serious questions, right? And so just being a part of the the band, what was your favorite performance that you can remember?
Honestly, probably our last performance.
What was the song?
It was senior night.
Senior night. Okay.
So I think it was September 23rd. There was just so many memories with it, and with being a senior, it was one of my last performances I have with this group. Being on the field, having a solo in the music, and just all the music like that we picked at the end of the year last year. He like had us given recommendations on like what we should play for halftime, like for our show.
Okay.
And although we didn't get exactly what we wanted. There was still like one of our songs was incorporated into making like a more broader topic for it because we are doing musicals this year.
Okay.
So we have our first song is from Little Shop of Horrors. It's like the prologue song. And then our second one is Music of the Night from Phantom of the Opera.
Okay.
And then our last song is Seasons of Love and like the finale from Rent, which I wanted the Rent as long as a bunch of other people in band too. So having that, like, there's all the memories of everybody and like making these last couple games count.
Right.
Because it's the last couple that you're going to do. Like, that's just really probably one of my favorite memories.
Okay.
Favorite games.
Yeah, perfect. And as you were talking, there was a couple of instances in there where you described how you and your classmates used your voices, right, to get some things that you wanted to. So that's perfect. I appreciate that. So last question for you. What's your favorite teacher? Now, remember, a lot of people are going to be watching this. So...
I know. Are we doing, like, current teacher now or, like, all teachers?
How about
my answer might change.
Okay, how about we do current teachers then?
Current teacher. As an actual teacher, probably Mr. Perrion.
Okay.
By far.
All right.
He just brings
shout out to Mr. Perrion.
Yes, shout out to Mr. Perrion. He just brings such a different like vibe to the classroom.
Okay.
Like every day you don't know what you're gonna expect walking into that classroom, and just having like times where we can joke around and like just making all those memories in one classroom is just such like a big thing, and having him be like that teacher there, it just makes everything just like so more joyful.
Gotcha. Well, obviously you like all your teachers, but I forced you to pick one. So, all right, but that's perfect. All right, coach. So we're at that point in the podcast where each guest takes a turn here at the ESPN basket. So let's see what skills you have. See if you can get this in. Almost. That was good.
I was very close.
You were close. You were close. Well, I appreciate you being on, and again talking about it. In my opinion, and just like you stated, a very serious topic, and something in schools that we should all think about and figure out how can we incorporate student voices more into what we do, right? And I mean from the district level on down. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, welcome back. We got guest number 2 for our episode on student voice. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for asking, and thanks for being a part of this. I really appreciate this. And so for the audience who don't know who you are, right? If you can give your name and then what grade you're in.
My name is Jack Erickson, and I am a senior at Harlem High School.
Senior at Harlem High School. So how does it feel when you say senior, right? How does that make you feel?
It's a mix of emotions because, I remember going through dates back in like elementary school saying like, oh, I graduate in 2023. Like that's so far away.
Right.
And now it's less than like 3 months.
Yeah.
So I think it's just awestruck at the fact that, we're coming towards the end, but also, looking back and seeing, wow, we've come a long way, and ready to move on to bigger things too.
Gotcha. And I can relate too, because I remember when I was probably your age or a little bit older, and I used to think 47 years old was like old, and now I'm 47, right? And I'm like, oh man, it's not old, right? So something to kind of think about. But so with student voice, right, and talking about the importance of having it, when you can think back on your journey, right, in school, what opportunities or what classes stick out to you, where you were encouraged to use your voice and talk about things that was important to you or your classmates?
Yeah, I've always been a big proponent for social studies classes. Like history is my favorite topic. So I feel like those history classes that I've had, when you have the history starting in like 7th grade and those like 1 classes, I've been able to find my passion in that and start to use my voice more in that, because it is, one of my big passions.
Okay. All right. So give the audience an example of, because I love history as well. And I always think that, and it's this saying, and I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but, we study history so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past, right? And so when thinking of your passion for history and why you love it so much and using your voice, give us an example of that.
Last year when I took AP US History, we go starting from those early times back with Christopher Columbus, and we go up towards, the economic policies of Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
So I'd say, like, a lot of the stuff we talked about, there were some controversial subjects, and towards the end, after our exam, because, we have a few weeks after the exam that we just have, not necessarily having to learn history, we had a few Socratic seminars.
Okay.
And there were some very controversial topics, like one on abortion, for example, and we had another one on the death penalty and, your thoughts on it. And I feel like that was one of the best ways for me as an individual and us as a class to work together to use our voice and to use my voice to get our point across so that we can all develop a broader understanding, and for our teacher to also get a student standpoint from that as well.
That is awesome, and I'm glad you went there and you shared your thoughts on that, and whoever your teacher was with that class, giving you the space to have those type of discussions. That's always important. And so when I'm thinking of student voice, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do this episode, to really hear what our students have to say. I'm gonna say this word, and I just want your honest reaction to it, right? So when I say social justice, and in using your voice as a student, what does that mean to you?
Social justice, it's getting everybody to have a voice, to have their voice heard, that there's no necessarily higher power that is silencing them, and for everybody to have an opinion on a subject and to get their voice heard, so that we could inhibit possible change in the institutions that we have.
Yep. Love it. If I can reach across there from that was perfect. That was what I was thinking about, because I do feel like, especially at my level, right? At the district level, being able to have opportunities to speak to kids, is what I miss the most, from my previous roles, and having these type of conversations. And so thank you for your honesty, and I appreciate that. And so now let's get a little, get away from the seriousness to it a little bit. So I kind of heard, that you're in band as well as the previous guest, right? So what instrument do you play? Instruments?
Instrument. Yeah. So apart from the alto saxophone, just because, I play the euphonium in concert band, but going back to marching band, it's the marching baritone. Same kind of thing, but tubed very differently. Euphonium looks more like a tuba. Marching baritone looks like a trumpet, but they sound the same. And I also play trombone and jazz band.
Okay.
So those are the instruments I play. I've been involved in it since 5th grade, and I've just been working my way up.
Okay. I miss those jazz cabarets.
Oh yeah.
That we used to have, and I don't know if Mr. Perry is thinking about bringing anything like that back, or are we? But those were some nice nights. And so, do you still, as a band? I remember the morning before a football game, would go out into the commons and play. Do you still do that?
Yep, we still do that.
So explain that for the audience who has not experienced that feeling.
So, and I don't know if many other schools do this, like in our NIC 10. I have a lot of friends in band. But so we, in the morning, when the doors open for the students, we go out to the commons every Friday that there's a game, home or away. More hype if there's home, but there's away games too. And we just go out and hype the students up. Usually, the football players and the cheerleaders all stand in the middle of the commons. Okay. They all just jump around and just hype each other up and stuff while we play our school song. And we also play a little pep tune just to give everybody a taste of our band and to what they could experience at the home games that we play at.
Okay, awesome. And what type of feedback have you got from students and staff members about that experience?
It's honestly been mixed.
Okay.
From what I've heard, everyone seems to enjoy the pep assembly that we have every Friday.
Okay.
Some of them at 8 a.m. is a little too early for them. And when you have a band that is playing as loud as they can, because that's our pep music, they're a little startled. Don't like it too much, but I've heard a lot of positive feedback because hypes everybody up, makes everybody enjoy.
Yeah.
what we have to come later that day.
And then that's good. Music does that, right?
Yeah.
And then, hey, great start to the day, right? So the previous guest, I asked this question. I'm going to ask you as well. Favorite teacher, but I'm going to expand it and say you can either say current or former teacher.
Yeah, good. And I was thinking about this when you asked him that, because I'm like, oh,
Okay.
geez, what am I gonna do? I think I have a good three.
Okay.
That I don't think I can choose between.
All right. Hey.
So one is passed. That's Profe, my Spanish teacher from last year.
Yeah.
This year we have Mrs. Gupta,
Okay.
Calculus,
Yeah.
and then Mrs. Nunam, my African American history
okay.
teacher.
Can't go wrong with either one.
Nope.
Right. All right. No, that's perfect. And so, if their last question, I don't know if I said that before, but this is the last question. Any advice you would want to give, the younger, generation about the importance of student voice and being, confident in being able to speak, your truth and things of that nature. So what type of advice would you give, the younger generation?
Don't ever be afraid to use your voice, because you never know what the outcome is going to be. And, if you don't use it, nothing's going to change. And if you want something to change, you got to use your voice to see if there is a possible change.
Okay.
And if you don't use your voice, there's nothing that can be done. And yeah.
Perfect. Powerful. I appreciate that. So now let's see if you can make the famous ESPN,
All right,
bucket here.
Yeah.
Previous guest got close.
Oh, right.
I mean, hey,
That's okay.
That's okay.
That's
You
okay.
tried. You tried, right?
Yeah.
Like
What
just
you got to
mentioned.
do with student voice.
What you got to
got
do
to
with
try.
student voice. I appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you for being on today. I really appreciate it. All right. So that is another episode of Talk 122 with your superintendent, Dr. Terrell Yarbrough. Like always, the topics that we discuss and come up with, we hope the audience finds a place for it and they appreciate it, because we definitely feel like they're important topics. So we appreciate you for tuning in. And as always, I am Harlem, you are Harlem, we are Harlem. Thanks for watching.